Welcome back to the Tara Palmeri Show. Everything in Washington is political, even food. Every administration puts their stamp on the food scene in the city, often reflecting the tastes of the administration. For example, President Trump loves a hamburger and steak, while President Obama preferred a more eclectic cuisine, and you saw more of them around the city. My next guest, Top Chef contestant Spike Mendelsohn, owns a number of DC restaurants on Capitol Hill, so he understands how power and food go hand in hand better than anyone else. He made his name during the Obama years when he worked on a number of healthy food initiatives with Michelle Obama. At the time, conservatives on the right mocked her for being a nanny and going after comfort foods like fried foods. Now the right seems to be eating their own words, with Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. looking to clean up the food industry himself. And he's espousing some of the same beliefs as Michelle Obama, and he may even be looking to my next guest for some help. Take a listen to the episode. Thanks so much for joining, Spike. I've got to say that I first really became aware of you during the Obama years. I'm not a huge foodie Top Chef watcher, but sure. Obviously I'm in awe that you made it to the finals of the show. But I became aware of you through the food scene during the Obama years when I was a young reporter, and suddenly there were all of these new exciting places to eat around town, like Good Stuff Eatery, We the Pizza, another one of your places in the hill, on the hill. Really? And it was just like before that, Washington was so stodgy. There was nowhere to go to eat. It was just like Old Ebbitt, where you can get late night oyster shooters, which is great, but it was the same old mid-Atlantic bistro fare, and it felt like pub scene. And I think the whole crew of new young chefs like yourself changed Washington.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. And I remember getting in trouble the first year in DC. I was like a hot-headed chef coming from New York City. I wasn't calling myself hot. Just to be clear there. And I had just been right off of Top Chef. So I had this national marketing and PR and appeal. And I remember being quoted in DC. I was like, people were asking me, why'd you move to DC? I was like, it's great to be, a big fish in a small pond. And DC really didn't take too well to that comment. It was kind of funny, but it was so true, right? Back then, there were a few chefs paving the way for other chefs, but there wasn't that young, ambitious chef coming to make their mark in DC in the food scene at the time. And so I was really happy just to be part of that, and now, I could say 15 years later, I think DC is one of the, the culinary destinations of the world. You have chefs from all over the world opening up restaurants here, from, fast casual restaurants to fine dining, Michelin restaurants. So yeah, the scene's huge. And, it was an honor. I'm as you mentioned, my restaurants are in Capitol Hill, so I'm literally blocks away from the Capitol, and so for me, leaning into the political scene was something new and different, and I didn't really know how to navigate it too much. But over the years, became something that really became part of our brands, actually, and so yeah, it's been great over here.
I mean, you can't avoid it. We the Pizza, I mean, it's there, and you're serving people from both sides of the aisle, I'm sure. But yeah, I noticed this as well, because I'll meet with sources, members of Congress, and they pick usually where they want to go. And I tend to see a lot more Republicans at steakhouses, and I see Democrats at different types of restaurants, maybe more like a continental cuisine, or I rarely go to vegan places, although I know you recently opened a vegan restaurant,
yes.
Planta. Is that right?
It's called it's PLNT burger, so plant burger basically, and they're inside Whole Foods. So we have about 11 locations. They're all inside Whole Foods. They're spread out throughout the DMV. It is my sustainable burger brand, and compared to the other burger brand I have, which is Good Stuff Eatery, which is more traditional. But yeah, so I like to feed people, Tara. That's basically what I do, and I don't really, I don't care what your dietary restrictions are, or I like just to be able to feed all different facets of people, and that's why for me DC has been a really great place to make my career. And you're right, like with it's all, we were talking about this a little bit at the party. There's always a little bit of a shift when the administration kind of changes in the DC area,
right.
from whether it's Republican or Democratic at the time, one way or the other. And I wouldn't say it has like a drastic effect on the food scene, but there are some subtle and interesting ways it does kind of penetrate, based on like the clientele or the spending habits, for instance, or even some of the event culture that you have over here. So it's always kind of interesting to see what happens,
Okay, so tell me, what was this change like between the Obama years and Trump 1.0 for you in terms of the food scene?
Oh, I mean, well, one, let's just take it at the, when Obama and the rest of the family came into power here, they really leaned into the city, Tara. Like, you saw them going out and about, supporting small businesses, celebrating all sorts of different restaurants, whether they were fast casuals or little corner stores, or they were fine dining restaurants. And I think that's one thing
Ben's
that really...
Chili Bowl.
Ben's Chili Bowl, exactly. I think that's what really, revived the dining scene in DC, because you had a slew of entrepreneurs, whether people were into music, you just had a young breed of entrepreneurs coming to the city, and a lot of those were in and around food. And so for me, it really kind of escalated the food scene and made it very interesting. I even remember, after the bailout, Obama came to celebrate at Good Stuff Eatery over burgers, right? And it was like our greatest, one of our greatest headlines is like, Obama comes, celebrates. So it's just interesting how being DC, a small business restaurant, really opens itself to that kind of political climate there. But I would say the shift, we could talk about the shift, I'd say historically, really, like when the Republican administration's here, the defense budget goes up, the energy, there's a lot more money spent on energy. And that usually leans to steakhouse vibes, is what I call it, right? Where people are, you mentioned it right before, right? Where, restaurants like Charlie Palmer's might have some of their best years, or the Capitol Grill, for instance.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The Monocle, right? So just restaurants like that seem to thrive in that environment, right? And then when the Democratic administration is in power, right, you have more activity in and around like the NGOs, right? You have environmental groups, you have a lot of tech-focused groups, and those tend to lean a little bit more trendy, a little bit more fast casual, a little bit more ethnic restaurants. And so, you can name like Ambar or Rose's Luxury, if or Little Pearl. So it's interesting how that kind of shifts to a certain degree. So,
yeah, you're right. I mean, thinking about it too, like it would be really hard to get a table at one of those restaurants during a Democratic year, and then it kind of feels like a ghost town sometimes when it switches in a weird way. What's hot during that time, because you're kind of also, I mean, at least as a journalist too, you're kind of also going to sightsee. I mean, there's this new place on Capitol Hill, which I'm sure you're aware of, Butterworth's, which was, which was just like a pub before that. What was the name of the pub before it? I can't remember.
I think it was the Haagen-Dazs, actually, right? Or
the Haagen-Dazs, yeah.
The Haagen-Dazs, yeah. So the Haagen-Dazs.
Yeah. So it was like a traditional like Hacks and Flacks kind of like pub on Capitol Hill. And now Steve Bannon's crew has pretty much taken it over. And there's always black cars outside. And I saw Marco Rubio come in there for a party the other day.
Totally.
They throw parties there. And it's a British guy named Raheem Kassam, who worked for Nigel Farage, who obviously led the UKIP movement, the Brexit movement in the UK. And like he's trying to show like a more rarefied form of MAGA, not just like a meat and potatoes. So he was saying to me, oh, well, we have caviar on the menu and we have duck lard. And he's bringing like kind of some like bistro, French bistro, a little bit of British influence. Picture of the Queen on the wall. But I mean, these people have expensive tastes too. Yeah. Like, I mean, so I don't think it's that surprising, but that's the most I've really seen that crowd lean into kind of a more, I guess you could say, international cuisine.
A little bit more international, a little bit more on trend. No, I had the same exact thoughts as you did. And I mean, and the fact is that they're probably selling a lot more steaks and strip cocktails at that restaurant anyways, even though they have all that stuff, all the other items on there as well. But
yeah, you're right. That's for sure.
it has been very interesting to see. I used to have a bistro right next door to that restaurant. It was called Bernays, and it was the complete opposite, right? It was like very much the place where Democrats came to eat and enjoy their steak and their frites and the little trendy bistro vibes. And so I remember serving all sorts of people from Congress and from that party. So just interesting to see how it changes. For me, it's a little bit more of a shock and awe than maybe the rest of some of the businesses in DC, because I am right on Capitol Hills, and so we really depend on everybody. Even
Right.
Everyone that's working and even the younger people that are into it. They just we have their lunch period, so we see a drastic change. It almost feels like kind of overnight.
Yeah. I wonder too, like, when food is trendy, like how much do you feel like you have to catch up with that? Like, for example, I mean, it's not really trendy to have almond milk, but like kind of is now, right? Or to have alternatives to cheese or, the gluten-free pasta feels old now, but what are they using now? Like, what is it? It's like a hummus-based pasta. No, it's not hummus. It's chickpea pasta.
Yeah, no,
you know what I
chickpea
mean?
pasta.
Like, do you feel
Hunza,
yeah, like, do you feel like compelled to have to keep up with these trends, or do you think it's sort of?
Well, again, like I think right now with the political climate in the DC, I think you're less into maybe following those exact trends, right? And maybe following some other things.
Okay.
What I think is interesting to see on Capitol Hill is just like how happy hour changes, right? So it's just you can there's just they lean into all sorts of different branding and then maybe different ways, the different specials that lean into Republican sayings or what have you. And it's just interesting to see how the happy hour vibe changes on Capitol Hill, because historically, we've had pretty political driven bars up and down Capitol Hill, like whether it was the Tune In, the Haagen-Dazs, or a couple different establishments here. It was always kind of the watering hole. So
right, and they tend to be segregated, honestly, like based on your party, right? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you're Canadian too. Well, are you American? Are you American now? But you were born in Canada, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have dual citizenship. I was born in Montreal, which is very much, was very different from even the rest of Canada, obviously, because it's in Quebec. But yeah, so I'm from Montreal, and but I'm kind of living the American dream. We always looked at the United States and as a place to have opportunity, and when these restaurants at Capitol are family business, so they're made up of my mother, my sister, and my father.
Oh, wow.
and it's maybe people don't realize that, but they very much, I usually get most of the credit for everything that's going on because I'm the one marketing the brands. But yeah, we're a family affair with like living kind of the American dream on Capitol Hill, like opening up our restaurants here and being successful. And we never thought we'd be, part of the shift of political parties in DC, but we really are part of it. I remember we like to call them our golden good stuff years during the Obama administration, because we were able to do so much in the city, where we get invited to the Easter egg roll. We'd be invited to the White House to cook and showcase our menus. We were very much driving the small business entrepreneur in the DC area. That's kind of why we loved it. And it has been a shock with the change of administration. I think there's a lot less opportunity, for that to happen. And so that's basically what's happening on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I mean, you had the President Obama burger, or Prez Obama burger, on the menu in honor of his inauguration. You also created the Michelle Melt with the White House chef, Sam Kass. Have you leaned into any other political figures with tributes since then?
Yeah, no, it's kind of our thing. We, every cycle we throw kind of a burger election, and we usually try to characterize the burger behind the characteristics of the candidate, whether it's a Trump or Hillary or Obama. And so the first one we ever did was McCain and Obama, and it went widely successful. I mean, I remember people were coming and ordering it and making sure that we got the vote right. We were like, hey, I'm having the Obama burger. That's a vote for Obama, right? Or even at times people were coming so much to the restaurant, they were curious what the McCain burger would taste like, but they would be like, I'd like to order the McCain burger, but I might keep my vote for Obama. And we would update the votes every day on the front doors, and people just started enjoying it. I think, for me, I do a lot of food policy in the DC area. I worked on behalf of Mayor Bowser at the food policy chairman and the council. And obviously I was part of Michelle Obama's initiatives to reform food in schools and stuff. And so to me, it's something that should be, nonpartisan, always like, I feel like you can always have a good conversation around a table. And so we, our guests, as you would imagine, Tara, are both Republican, liberals, Democratic. They come from all different backgrounds. And so for us, we like to celebrate the conversation, right? We like to celebrate coming together to be able to have, an important conversations. But the conversations have changed at the table. That's the interesting part of the shift. So.
Yeah. Do you have a Trump burger?
We have a president burger now. We don't really call it the Trump burger, but we do have the Prez burger. That's kind of what we do. We just try. We feel the conversation's a little bit more polarizing than it used to be right now. So for us, it's kind of like we really want to stay very neutral in some of that conversation, just because. Again, we're in the food business, and we believe everybody has a right to eat. So we'll take care of the food business while others take care of the political business.
It's really interesting to me because, I remember that Michelle Obama was really mocked for her healthy food eating initiatives by Republicans, right? They're like, she's the Grinch who stole, my Fruit Loops, it was just like, how dare she come in and take our vending machines away? Kids deserve their snacks and their cookies and this and that. And now you've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. In the health department, and he's coming in with a lot of the same policies, frankly, that Michelle Obama was pushing for. I mean, obviously not the vaccine stuff, but he just said that he's planning to phase out 8 petroleum-based food dyes that are found in hundreds of thousands of grocery stores and foods. And I don't know, do you agree with this MAGA movement? Do you see any value in it right now? And do you feel like that he's...
I absolutely do believe in that movement on making, everyone a little bit healthier. And I think, our food system has been monopolized by huge companies where, driven by greed, right? And that's what you're kind of even seeing, everyone comes to lobby on behalf of those companies here on Capitol Hill, and I'm very much involved in it. I actually just saw RFK at a hockey game, and I was chatting with him, about his initiative, and I actually offered my hand to help. I gave him a little bit of my background. I said, listen, I work with the, Michelle Obama's administration on doing many of these things that you guys are talking about doing right now. And I just said, are you guys using any chefs? And, how can I help move it forward? And he's like, hey, absolutely. And I think he was very sincere in the way he was like, we want to get more chefs involved. I know Tim Love is one of my good buddies out of Texas, is getting involved a lot with the administration on trying to do that. And there is a purpose for that. I mean, food dyes are not great. Again, I'm the guy from Canada. Our Fruit Loops look a lot more ordinary than the American Fruit Loops look like, just because of those dyes, right? Because they're outlawed in Canada. So, I could definitely, again, I'm not getting behind all those policies that this administration is doing, but there are some that I really do agree with. And this is an example of one, right? Where I can get behind this work and hopefully contribute to it, because I have in the past with the Michelle Obama and other administrations. And you're right. It's funny how they came after her back then about it, and now less so with RFK in the midst. But for me, just as long as the job's moving forward and we keep pushing in the right direction is what I really care about. And so, I'll work with whoever is leading that up. I think one huge headline, and we're doing it also here on Capitol Hill, is In-N-Out just announced an entire conversion of their food and their menu away from food dyes to be compliant with what these initiatives are. And we're doing that too at Good Stuff. And we have been doing it, one of the reasons Michelle Obama really loved coming to We the Pizza to celebrate a lot of her, the things, whether it was her kids' parties or her birthday or her staff's parties, is we offered sodas, homemade sodas that didn't have high fructose syrup in them, right? So, we came out with that stuff 10 years ago where we're eliminating dyes out of our sodas as an option for people. So yeah, absolutely. I think it's important work, and I'm looking forward to seeing if it's real, if it's going to move the needle.
Yeah. If he calls you and asks you to come in.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
You stand ready. Did you invite him to any of the restaurants?
Yeah, definitely. I invited him to a couple of the restaurants, while we were having our conversation. The White House called. And so, he had to kind of step away. Oh,
you didn't get to hear that convo, Spike?
I tried. I was looking to confirm that was it really the White House calling. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Again, I'm keeping busy and I'm always pushing those initiatives forward in DC. Our mayor in DC, Mayor Bowser, really, really pays attention to the food system, and she's really been pushing forward for healthier systems. So, and she's accomplished some really great work as well. So I think that's something we can be proud of. So
I lived in Europe for a few years, and I know what it's like to not have to worry about, food dyes or just assuming that chicken hasn't been chlorinated or that there aren't hormones in your beef, and that you just kind of assume everything is biologique, organic, as they say, and you really do feel better, like you feel healthier. I just wonder though, how much of the cost of, not using these dyes and perhaps, not using seed oil, which is something that RFK and the MAGA movement has been against, how much of that cost is incurred by the restaurant and then the customers? Like, it's just more expensive to make food and produce food that doesn't use these products.
Yeah, no, I it's an interesting question, and it's one that is yet to be figured out quite yet. I mean, one would say that they are using these artificial dyes in these foods because they serve a purpose, definitely cost-wise, right? So if they're not able to use these, the assumption would be that costs would go up and that they would pass that through to the consumers. So it's definitely something we worry about. I mean, I am experiencing it right now with a couple of different companies of mine. We have Just Iced Tea, which is an iced tea company right now, and we have a global supply chain for that brand. We get tea from India, from China, from Mozambique, from Africa. So, and that's just our teas, let alone our fruit purees that come from, Mexico or Colombia or Brazil. And so when you look at our supply chain, it truly is global. That's what I love about the company. But now with tariffs, we have to look at every single tariffs and see how much we're being affected. And the fact is we really are, we are, the price for a lot of our ingredients are going up substantially, and we're forced to look at some of the different production places or eliminate certain SKUs which are certain flavors, for instance. So yeah, it definitely, I think in CPG, consumer packaged goods, it's going to have much more an effect. I think in restaurants, less so, because if a restaurant's, you're serving hopefully more fresh foods, right? And other than maybe like the Coca-Cola or the Pepsi, you're not really too much getting affected by these food dyes. But I definitely think it's definitely crucial that we do eliminate those. And especially when you're looking at, the companies that are getting away with it are the ones that are producing candy, right? Or things that are filled with sugar and are meant to look colorful, so kids can be attracted to the product rather than, having these subtle colors that aren't vibrant and kids are like, what's this, right? So, I think in that to me is good. It's a good thing, right? Because they, a lot of these things that make up America's junk food, candy or whatever, they're just not healthy. And I'm not a person about eliminating everything, but I do strive for a better balance in people's diets where, all right, have the Snickers or have the Skittles, but like, make sure you have a good diet, right? Make sure, if you can eliminate all of it, then, even better. I know I can. I gotta have a Snickers every once in a while, or something junky, and but so it's about a balance. But price wise, I think small businesses, it won't see too much effect on it. I think convenience stores and consumer packaged goods, you will see an effect on it.
Got it. What's the weirdest order you ever got from the White House?
Oh my gosh. Oh, the weirdest order. Yeah, I'll tell you what the weirdest order was. And it was while I was invited to cook at the White House, and it was Jared Kushner's order, actually. And it was, and he has basically the same thing every day for lunch. He has basically a P.F. Chang's version of a Mandarin spinach salad is kind of what he has all the time for lunch. And, here I was at the White House cooking our menu, the things that, we want to showcase. And, we were just executing all the tickets, right? We're just, in the Navy mess. And then an order came in for a Mandarin spinach salad with balsamic dressing. And we all just kind of looked at each other and we're like, what is going on here? And it's not that it's a bad thing, but it was just a awkward timing. And it was for Jared Kushner. So that's
Yeah.
that's kind of caught us by surprise.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Spike. Love chatting food. It is political. Everything is political. But it's always fascinating to hear. And let me know if you ever end up connecting with RFK, and if you end up doing anything with him, because I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, I definitely will let you know. And I'll leave you with we often treat food as a privilege here in the United States, but it should be treated much more as a basic human right. And that's kind of what I strive for. So,
wow.
But thanks for having me on. This was fun. This is definitely a very different podcast than I'm used to being invited to. So I appreciate that. Those.
Of course. It was so great to see you in person and to have that lovely meal. That was another episode of the Tara Palmeri Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this show, please rate it, subscribe, follow, share it with all of your friends. Please leave comments. If you like my reporting, you can go to tarapalmeri.com. That's TARAPALMERI. You can sign up for the red letter. That's where you can get all of my exclusive reporting and my independent journalism straight to your inbox. It is how you can support my independent journalism. And I will keep at it thanks to you. I want to thank my producer, Eric Apanate. I want to thank Abby Baker, who does my research and my social media, and Adam Stewart on the thumbnails. I'll be back again this week. I'm thankful for all of you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving week and you're able to take it a little slower.